Well, good afternoon and welcome to Shoreline Arts Alliance's roundtable discussion with Congressman Joe Courtney. I'm Eric Dillner, the CEO of the Shoreline Arts Alliance. We have several special things planned for you today. The main event is to discuss arts funding and arts rescue plan with Congressman Courtney. We'll hear some of our arts leaders a little bit about what they're working on and hear what Congressman Courtney's responses are so that we can all hear how it might apply to us. And then we'll also open the floor to all of you to ask questions to Congressman Courtney. Just so that we're all on the same page on how to do this, I'd love you to keep your mic muted until we get a chance to call on you. And at any time you'd like, just go ahead and put a question in the chat and we'll get to it as soon as we can. And I'll just keep adding folks into the room as we go. Midway through, again, I'll start to offer the opportunity to ask some questions. So we're so glad you all are here today. Though many of our consumers may not realize it, everyone in the arts workloads has completely changed. Some have just not enough to do. They're trying to find ways to do things, and some just have too much to do. I think that's what we found in this crazy pandemic is there's an abundance of work and maybe not enough joy. So I think we're coming out into the place where joy is going to start. So like many of you, Shoreline Arts Alliance's workload has gone just crazy. From re-envisioning and producing important exhibits like our statewide images photography show, to offering scholarships, to sending young students to college, to building careers in the nonprofit world, and now celebrating a collaboration with the Yale School of Public Health in honor of all of you. When COVID struck, we knew we had to find a way to help the arts community survive. In March, Shoreline Arts Alliance partnered with Yale School of Public Health, and we created a task force to reopen Connecticut art venues through science-based safety. We host a webinar series with the Dean of Yale School of Public Health to explore common challenges of reopening in the arts industry, offer practical scientific-based advice, and offer aid in rebuilding consumer confidence. As artists and arts leaders, this partnership was completely built for you, and we encourage you to make sure you check out actually there's 11 webinars right now on our website at www.shorelinearts.org, and there's also a bunch of other helpful information there. You'll be joining over 12,000 art leaders who've joined us from all over the country in these webinars, so please take a look. We've also had the opportunity to travel throughout the state to conduct numerous site visits. We've done several virtual site visits and consultations, and we encourage you to contact me at any time if you're interested in such a visit in one form or another. In the past year, like many of you, I've learned a great deal about the resiliency of artists and arts leaders here in the great state of Connecticut. The tenacity of arts leaders like you to work with and develop strategic plans to reopen with prudence and scientific-based information has set the course so that you can be extraordinarily effective with the dollars coming into the state that we're about to talk about. The Shuttered Venues program is an important and crucial next step in bringing the arts community back to life in Connecticut and throughout the country. This funding demonstrates and recognizes that the arts are vital to all of our communities, our economy, and the mental well-being of our citizenry. The task force will soon be focusing on some of our state's larger institutions to help them find the most cost-effective way to address some of those fun things like air handling strategies, staffing models, and other assistance. And of course, with consumer confidence. Now that many shuttered venues will have a financial lifeline, we also plan to offer our expertise so that they may use the dollars effectively, prudently, and in a manner that will make us all a healthier state for generations to come. All of our state citizens are suffering from not only financial challenges, but perhaps more importantly, stress on their mental health and well-being. As the Shuttered Venues program begins to push to open venues, I look so forward to the next phase of addressing those financial needs with other artistic gems and artistic economic drivers that Connecticut holds so dear. We're a state extraordinarily wealthy in talent. I mean, look at all the folks who are here today with us. We have numerous smaller, out-of-the-box creative thinkers that don't quite fit into the guidelines today, but we will find ways, again, to find a way to help you. There are nimble and impactful service agencies which support these shuttered venues, as well as individual artists that live, work, and invigorate our communities unassociated with these venues who don't quite fit the parameters. We get that, and there's a lifeline for many coming down the pike, and we're gonna find that. I truly look forward to hearing more about this incredible package and to learn how we can broaden that scope in the future. We've always known the impact of the arts have on our mental health, economic prosperity, and the quality of life. The biggest statement that we're hearing today is that by this extraordinary financial infusion into the arts, this is going to help us all make the case to future funders to invest in the arts. And I think we just need to not forget that part, that we all have relied on many wonderful folks to help, but now we have this large interest, this large infusion that is now going to be something that some of our other organizations that maybe haven't yet invested in the arts will now really see it. Again, we really did not know until it was gone what a huge space the arts filled in our hearts and in our communities. So with that, thank you so much, Congressman Courtney, for your extraordinary work on this amazing package for the arts and the economy in Connecticut. Thank you for guiding us along the way. Congressman Courtney, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Eric. And, the timing of this event, which, we didn't know where the Shuttered Venues program was going to be, and some of the other rescue plan money and funding was going to be as well. And literally, as we're talking here, there's like breaking, messages that we're getting from the Small Business Administration, as well as from the National Endowment for the Humanities, which I can update you on, which again is literally happening as we're sitting here. Really quickly, it's almost exactly a year ago, when COVID first really became a national public emergency, that Congress moved forward with a number of initial small bills that dealt with COVID, and then the CARES Act, which was enacted on March 25th, 2020. At that point, we all know, we can remember, at that point, the whole country was basically going into a lockdown, and there was just sort of a very, rapid infusion of money that was sort of just given almost like peanut butter across the board in terms of just a whole variety of different sectors in the U.S. economy. The PPP program, which many of you know about and have used, didn't even exist when the law was first signed into law on March 25th. And, agencies like SBA and others, were just kind of scrambling to sort of get the systems up and running. And at the same time that people were desperately, reaching out for help, the economic impact payments, the unemployment pandemic benefit, there was some state and local money, but at that point, again, we were all learning about just sort of where the economic fallout was going to really hit from COVID. Now that we're a year into this thing, or over a year into it, I think we have a much better understanding of, which parts of the economy really are to this day are still having the hardest time. And there's no question that the arts community and the sector that deals is defined as venues, large venues, because of the nature of a virus, which spreads when there's population density, and there's just not much you can do about that in terms of trying to adjust to it. Sectors like the restaurant industry and the arts community in particular to this day, again, are still I think some of the hardest hit areas in the U.S. economy. And that's why when you look at the COVID bill that passed at the end of December, which included the funding for shuttered venues, as well as the American Rescue Plan, which President Biden signed into law on March 11th. It's almost exactly a month ago as we sit here today. There was definitely much more targeted economic assistance that was given to the restaurant industry, who got, again, their own allocation of funding to deal with the special challenges that they have, as well as, folks in the arts community with the Shuttered Venues program, which again, $15 billion was set aside at the end of December. There was about another $1.5 billion that was included in the American Rescue Plan, as well as some policy changes to sort of deal with different questions like dual eligibility for PPP and shuttered venue. So a couple days ago, Eric and I did an event with some of your colleagues over at Goodspeed Opera House with the Small Business Administration. People were very excited about the fact that the portal was scheduled to open tomorrow. And in some ways, it's not surprising that the volume of people applying for assistance pretty much crashed the system, as I think many of you know. And we literally just got a text from SBA, literally as Eric was beginning his remarks, which again, apologize that, you know, the system has grant tech issues, which have been identified. As we work to remedy them, we can confirm that we did not accept any applications or distribute any funding over the last, 24 hours or so, or 48 hours. And the ability to submit an application at this moment remains closed. But again, once they get the aperture reopened, then obviously applications will be accepted at that point. You know, I've been around a few rodeos in terms of new government programs that have been rolled out in the past. I mean, the two most vivid memories is that when we passed the post 9/11 GI Bill back in 2008, which again expanded the scope of eligible military and veterans who were eligible for GI Bill educational benefits. The VA system, when it opened up its computer, completely crashed. And I mean, in some ways, it was a validation of the policy because it showed that there was a pent-up demand for the GI Bill. And it took a little while before the VA was able to kind of stabilize its system to process those applications. Same thing with Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. I mean, I think many of you remember in 2014, when the systems opened up, again, it really struggled with the millions of Americans who were applying for the program. SBA had some problems with PPP and EIDL back a year ago when the CARES Act passed. But I do think, people have, you've hung in there this long, and, we're hopefully in a situation right now where this is going to be, a matter of days to remedy and get the system stood up again and accepting applications. And I just wanted to sort of foot stomp that because I know it's probably on the minds of many people who were obviously very excited about yesterday's opening and are very frustrated that, again, it's still tantalizingly close, but not quite there. So the other sort of breaking development that we just heard about within about the last hour or so is that the new funding that was included in the American Rescue Plan for the National Endowment for the Humanities. Again, they issued a notice, again, just about an hour or so ago, which again is describing what the process is going to be for people to apply for NEH grants. Again, the rescue plan included emergency funding for National Endowment for the Humanities and National Endowment for the Arts of about $135 million new dollars into both programs. This is on top of the fiscal year 21 funding for NEH and NEA, which we passed at the end of December. So again, the National Endowment for the Humanities now is already starting to stand up their system for accepting applications for NEH grants. Again, these are not loans, these are grants. PPP, got another infusion of money, as many of you know, and it allows people who used the program once before to reapply a second time. Again, that funding is rapidly drawing down as we speak here, but again, it's something which certainly a lot of folks who are in the arts community, were high users back when the CARES Act first passed, and then when we had to replenish the program a couple of times later in 2020. One last thing I want to sort of flag for people, because included in the American Rescue Plan is that we boosted the tax subsidies, the subsidies for people who are on the Affordable Care Act health insurance plans. So as many of you know, the way the ACA was designed is that people, working people who made too much to qualify for Husky could get health insurance and qualify for a subsidy, a premium subsidy, up until 400% of the poverty level. if you exceeded that level, the cost of these plans, these health insurance plans, became exorbitant. I mean, just very, very expensive. If you look at the American Rescue Plan, we lifted the cap, the 400% poverty line income limit, up to over 600% of poverty. And on May 1st, the system is going to reopen for people who, for those who are already on ACA health plans, to apply for the new subsidies that will lower people's premiums, as well as it will open up for people who are not on the Affordable Care Act and who, because maybe they just couldn't afford it, but who are now going to be, again, in a much better place financially in terms of affordable health insurance. And I'll give you an example, because we were just on the call today with the Connecticut Exchange. They described a family in Middletown, two parents, one kid, family of three. Their income is $110,000, which under existing income guidelines made them ineligible for subsidies. So their premiums per month was $1,800 for the family in terms of getting health insurance. With the American Rescue Plan, they've already run the numbers in terms of what that family's monthly premium is going to look like. And the answer is zero. Okay, so they are literally, it's like a mortgage payment is suddenly just a rather large mortgage payment for some people. It's just going to totally disappear. So again, on May 1st is when this new health insurance subsidy program is going to kick in. Based on people who are already in the system, who are already enrolled in the Connecticut Exchange, they've already calculated that's about an $85 million benefit that is going to come to people through the American Rescue Plan. That's money in people's pockets that they're going to have in terms of savings. And again, that does not include, the 85 million does not include new people who I think are going to suddenly, find this program much more attractive. So they're going to get new enrollments as part of the new program. This program is in effect for 2 years. Okay, this is not something that's going to, disappear with, the end of the national public health emergency. This is going to continue into late, 2023. And I know folks in the arts community, many of people are either, self-employed, sole proprietorships, small businesses, people who have employer-based plans who, again, maybe, 2 or 3 or 4 employees. The exchange in Connecticut is going to provide assistance for people in that situation where the employees can, come off the employer's plan and get the individual coverage, which will be more affordable. So, that's just one example of sort of, the magnitude of this bill, of the American Rescue Plan, where, again, there are features of it which we are still, it's evolving and literally rolling out, day by day. But that's a big one, in terms of particularly, adults who, again, really struggle. And we've gotten those calls in my office for years about the fact that once you got past that subsidy level, you fall off a cliff in terms of affordability. And that definitely is going to be much improved. If people have questions about that, after today, we again are going to have information we can share with you. And just so you know, the Access Health Exchange, as I said, they are going to be rolling out information for people between now and May 1st when enrollment is going to begin. I'm going to end by just having Julia McGrath in my office give a quick sort of description of what NEH announced today, and we'll be sharing the document with Eric and the team so that you'll be able to circulate it with your members. Thank you for organizing this event. You cannot over communicate at a time like this. And, we again, just are huge, fans and admirers of all the organizations that are here. This has been really just brutally difficult to hold on. But as Eric said, the value of what you do is, if anything, more and better understood in a time like this. So Julia, why don't you just describe what NEH came out with this morning?
Yes, so we have 2 grant programs coming out of NEH with the ARP money. The first is for organizations to directly apply to. That's called the American Rescue Plan Humanity Organizations Program. And it has 3 levels of funding. The first level of funding has a maximum level of funding of $50,000. Level 2 has a maximum amount of $200,000, and level 3 has a maximum amount of $500,000. This, because it is relief money, it has a very short application window. So these applications need to be in by May 14th at midnight. And they do put, which you will see when I'm going to supply these links through the chat, but they do put a notice on the webpage that grants.gov, where you submit your application for funding, will actually be down for system updates starting on May 15th. So you want to get this application in early to make sure that you don't run into any issues. So this is for eligible organizations seeking support for humanities positions and projects that have been adversely impacted by the pandemic. So we're talking museums, libraries, archives, historical sites, independent research institutions, professional organizations, colleges and universities, and other humanities organizations. But then we also have a separate program for humanities grant making. So this is organizations like Connecticut Humanities, which will then make grants to a lot of organizations in Connecticut. I always think of CT Humanities because they've done such a great job during the pandemic with getting money out to people. So these maximum award amounts are up to $2 million for grant making programs for individuals, and up to $5 million for grant making programs for organizations. This for the grants going directly to humanities organizations, the period of performance is 1 year, but for the grant making grant, it's for 2 years. This one is basically along the same deadline of May 13th, so 1 day earlier. Again, you want to keep in mind the grants.gov maintenance. And for both of these, the notification date looks like September 1st, so this money will get out really, really quickly. We are still waiting on the National Endowment of the Arts to put out their information on how they're going to get ARP money out, but they have put out a really good FAQ that I will also put in the chat along with these links, and the SVOG link that will link to the application portal when it goes back up, and some PPP information. So that's all for now. But
well, that's great news. Thank you so much, both of you. This is really exciting that we're moving along into a better time here, and thank you for finding finding all this information out to us. I love it that we're getting it right here at in split second time. Thank you, Joe, for keeping your phone on and getting all that information out to us. I thought it was really interesting. You said that we this crash actually is a testament to the need. And again, I think we all are looking for ways to make sure that we can tell our funders, tell our community that it's not just you who needs us. It's so many people. So thank you so much for that great information. I'm just going to remind everybody who's here that you can in maybe 10 minutes or so we'll start entertaining some questions out of the chat area. But you feel free to go ahead and stick them in there. But also, again, you heard that Joe Courtney's office is happy to share a bunch of this information later. So if it's on those topics, you may not want to ask today, and we can do a follow-up later on that. So what we're going to do now is turn the floor over here to Kathleen Marr, who's with the Barnum Museum down in Bridgeport. Kathleen, we welcome you to be an example of one of our wonderful institutions in the state that needs help, just like the rest of us. But also, you're doing great work. So I'm hoping that we can all just take note from what she has to say. So, Kathleen.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you so much for being here, Congressman, and Julia. It's wonderful. Happy to say, first out of the blocks, I started the NIH grant yesterday when it went live. So there's no dust under our feet. But I will add to Julia's comments. If one of your constituents is planning to do an NIH grant, make sure they get their DUNS number. If they do not have a DUNS number, it takes time for that to process. And the worst thing would be if they're all ready to upload it and they don't have that number, they don't make it through the system. But again, I want to thank you. I also want to thank you, Congressman, because you are a Tufts alum. I don't know if you know, P.T. Barnum is a founder of Tufts University. So go Jumbos.
You're muted, Congressman.
I went there so long ago, they still had Jumbo the elephant at Barnum Alma. They really did. It was a stuffed Jumbo. So.
Yes. We actually partner with them, and we have had alumni events at the Barnum Museum. So I'll make sure you're on the list. But I want to thank you too. The Barnum Museum is here for a few reasons. Certainly, we are on the shoreline. My office is a stone's throw from Long Island Sound, and we are the victim of multiple disasters. We got hit with that tornado a number of years ago, and then we took the hit from Hurricane Irene and then Superstorm Sandy. So let's throw a global pandemic on top of our disaster recovery. But what we did realize going through this process, and certainly the pandemic as well, as hard as it is to say, there's glorious opportunity. If you're kind of courageous enough to look back and see how can we make the change? And we were talking earlier that the arts, the culture, historic preservation has made extraordinary pivots in what they normally do and are finding innovative solutions to this. And we thank the United States government, all of our leaders for helping us navigate these very challenging waters. Yes, the Barnum Museum is still in the midst of recovery from the tornado. It is not simple or quick to restore National Registered property. And we are an urban development project. So I hope that in the greater regard for the recovery action infrastructure money, that not just roads are getting fixed to Massachusetts and out of the state to New York, that money, that infrastructure money is going into the communities and urban development, because at the end of the day, we want people to stop and use Connecticut. And certainly the shoreline, I need for people to stop in Norwalk, come to the Barnum Museum, and then stop at Mystic. We are an ecosystem and we need each other, and that urban development infrastructure funding helps further stimulate what is already a $15 billion tourism industry in Connecticut. It's reinvestment in what is already, a stable industry, which is tourism, arts, culture. So with that, I will also point out, because I know many other folks have to speak, I don't know if you realize the shuttered venue funding does not let museums that have the fixed seating. If you do not have fixed seating in your establishment, you are not eligible. Black box theaters who require flexibility in their galleries, they are eligible, but that eliminates just thousands of museums across the country who rely on flex seating to rotate galleries and change things up. So under the encouragement of the SBA, they say just apply. If you don't know, apply, things change. But I also discussed this with Congressman Himes' office, that if that provision can get altered to make more museums the anchors of so many communities eligible, we need that help, because we weren't eligible for the theaters funding that was prior to this, and now we're not eligible for shuttered venues. NEH is wonderful, so we're really happy about that. But with that, I know my colleagues all have wonderful things to say, but I want to thank you. Your district is wonderful. I visit your DC office every year with historic preservation, and it's a wonderful part of the state, and I enjoy it. And I've been a member of the Mystic museums for a long time, aquarium. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, good point. Thank you for bringing that up, Kathleen. We do have some work to do. It's an exciting day because we have so much help for many, but there are some who are left out in this process a bit. So I guess we'll move along to Brianna Ben-Brandy from Art and Soul Therapy in Madison.
Hi, Congressman Courtney. It's good to see you again.
Yes, same here.
So our practice lives at the intersection of the arts sector and healthcare sector. And so while one sector's been having some challenges, another, as far as being able to open up, the other sector's been very overwhelmed. And I get to see the interesting intersection of that. We have had a wait list for so long at this point. I have reached out, I've begun connecting with any creative arts therapists, and begun putting together a list of referrals for Connecticut folks. I'll actually put that in the chat, because and maybe somebody will get lucky and find somebody that can take them, but I know that the majority of my colleagues are completely booked. So where we're at, because we utilize art and because it's not just talking, we're able to bridge a lot of gaps, especially with kids and teens and persons with disabilities, and people who perhaps are not as eloquent as expressing their deepest, darkest inner demons to someone they just met, which is honestly most people. And luckily, we have been able to meet those needs through telehealth. I was very concerned if that was going to be a possibility, but we have shifted into the digital art realm, and there are digital art collaboration tools on the internet that are shareable, and we can actually make art with our clients. And so we've been able to provide those services. So our big challenge is, I think our biggest challenge coming up is the insurance companies. Of course, there are, Connecticut just got licensure for the licensed creative arts therapist licensure in 2019, but only Cigna will accept that licensure. So all the other insurances will not accept that licensure to pay through insurance. And another challenge, and I'm sure that you'll hear this from the healthcare sector across the board, is that telehealth needs to continue. I know a lot of insurance companies want to rule out the possibility of telehealth, or they will pay the provider, the clinician, less. They'll still charge the same copay to their members, the same rates to their members, but they want to pay less. And the understanding from the wellness professionals community is that, of course, telehealth gives access for people who have plans to get the healthcare that they are entitled to get. It increases access, therefore it increases the bottom line of insurance companies. And that is where a lot of the pushback is. So we very much need, just kind of a general consensus, is we need more therapists that can work with children, teens, adults with special needs, and who can do more than just include verbal language in these mental health sessions, because there's a great need and there's not enough providers to meet that need right now. So I thank you for continuing all the work that you do for us, and looking out for the state of Connecticut.
Well, thank you. And I mean, I can imagine you must be absolutely swamped. I mean, obviously COVID's impact extends beyond, physical illness. And in some ways, I think, its impact in terms of behavioral health and mental health is going to be even more daunting. And
Yes, we are seeing, of course, on the wave of a physical pandemic, there is a mental health pandemic.
Right.
And another important thing I meant to say, however, is that a lot of the kids that we are working with, kids, teens, we work with all ages really, but we work with some lesser served sectors. The majority of our clients are not people that are wrestling with COVID or are even wrestling with the loss of somebody from COVID, or are nothing to do with the disease. The vast majority of the folks that we are seeing are wrestling with the impacts of the pandemic to socialization. And so that speaks so many volumes to the importance of the arts, because socialization, arts, recreation, that is what fuels us. Our lives are intact, and all of the clients that we're seeing, they are alive. Their bodies are physically healthy. Their mental health has suffered greatly in the absence of connection with others. And so when we think about gathering with others, the arts, food, entertainment, and recreation, those are all central to what we do when and that's what heals us, being around other people and engaging in those activities.
That is really beautifully expressed. No, really.
Absolutely.
And again, the telehealth battle, I look forward to that, because I just feel like, you can't, the genie is out of the bottle, and, the insurance companies are not going to put it back in. And it's, and, obviously in Eastern Connecticut, which is the most sparsely populated part of the state,
Yes.
it's the tyranny of distance in terms of, connecting with, healthcare, in so many other ways. And telehealth, I think is really, it's been extraordinary how, people have just, adapted to it so well, and you're just not going to roll that back.
And in-person is not going away. There is a
No,
little
that's right.
something extra for in-person, and we're happy to be back in the offices, but we've also been able to connect with people
Yes.
that could not make the commute. They couldn't fit that into their days, especially with young people. You've got school, you've got extracurriculars. So we're able to assist people that otherwise they cannot have access.
Right.
Well, thank you, Brianna, so much. This
Thank
is
you.
really, really
And I
important.
apologize, I have to bow out because I
Yeah,
have a 2:30.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brianna. I think this is interesting for us to follow, Congressman Courtney, also with the new health insurance plan, because it'll be interesting to see if we can keep that aid for folks in that class as well, if you will. So our next person that's here with us today is Darren Wood from Flock Theatre in New London. Darren?
Thank you, and want to thank Congressman Courtney, and I also really want to stress, I was very fortunate to be included in the arts task force that Eric Dillner put together, and that has been just an amazing wealth of information, not only for my organization, but also all the different venues and organizations that we work with. I run a small theater company based in New London, and we don't have a venue. We've never had a venue. It's actually been one of our successes. We do performances throughout the city, throughout Connecticut, and throughout the region, mostly in some museums, the Thames Club, which is a 501c7, the Monte Cristo Cottage, or the Shaw Mansion, or other small house museums as well. So my question is really, as we're expanding, like my outdoor venues, I've got product ready to go. We actually were very successful last year when the regulation changed. We actually did an outdoor performance in August, successfully following all protocol and everything along those lines. So my outdoor venues, I've got product for developing already for this summer. My concern is in the smaller venues, like some of these museums. Now, they may themselves be able to apply for a shuttered venue grant or loan or one of those elements. But my organization, to develop the product that would go in there, I'm sort of taking on all of the consumer confidence risk, because we rent those venues. And I'm just wondering if there's any thought to how organizations similar to mine that produce art for other venues, if there's a net or a safety net, and as we rebuild the consumer confidence moving forward, to slowly battle our way out of this pandemic. And I should say we've been very successful with our PPP loans and those sorts of things, which have been a lifesaver, as well as pivoting to doing a lot of digital work. We do a lot of education work, and we've shifted most of that online. And some of our education videos are close to 30,000 views throughout the state. But our true heart is, say, a production of Jane Eyre that would go on inside the Shaw Mansion for small, intimate audiences. So that's my question: is how do we build the consumer confidence without it falling onto the back of small, independent artists?
So, Kathleen, also asked the question about whether or not, the scope of the shuttered venues can be sort of expanded for other non-fixed seating, providers. And obviously, Darren, you have another sort of, model that you use that, again, doesn't fit in the round hole of the program as it's set up. I mean, Eric's point about the fact that the system crashed within the first 12 hours of it opening up, in some ways, that may, I think, send a signal to Congress, that there really is a need here, and in fact, the need probably is going to exhaust the 16.5 million that's already in the program. But I have to tell you, and I think this is an important point, is that there's a reason why it took almost a friggin' year to get that money, is that because there really is still this sort of political barrier that the arts are frivolous, they're not really economic engines, and the good news is we were able to break through. We were able to get the shuttered venue program through. We got a boost to NEH and NEA, but even the final floor debate on the American Rescue Plan, there was still this real cheap demagoguing going on about funding for the arts. So again, the crashing of the system yesterday. Hopefully we'll maybe provide a little bit of, sort of boost to the proponents of this as an essential, service to the country. And, it's hard to say right now because, the Biden's, going forward on a big infrastructure bill, and then there's going to be the American Families Bill, which is sort of the second piece of infrastructure. And so, whether or not there's going to be opportunities to, as Jim Himes discussed with Kathleen or, others. I mean, frankly, that's why having these types of calls is really important, to just show that there's still meat left on the bone, so to speak, and that we've got to keep sort of, raising awareness about that. And, but I hadn't thought of someone, who does it the way you do, Darren. I mean, yeah, that's you're taking on all the risk, as you said.
Yep. And it just, to finish, one of the things is, I think so many people think of live theater as one element. And really, there are three different types of theater. There's a developmental theater, similar to the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center, where they're developing product only in the smaller stages. There are large bus and truck tour type theaters like the Gard Arts Center or the Bushnell that are bringing in these incredible productions that there's no way they could be done here without any other way. And then there's producing. And it's those producing theaters like my own that, we have to front all of that. And so as you're moving forward, if there's anything that I know that the Shoreline Arts can assist with, or my organization, please don't hesitate to call, because it's been a lifesaver. So,
right.
But I really do appreciate everything you're doing, and thank you, and I thank Eric.
Thanks a lot. Great. Good. Thank you. Good. Well, we'll switch gears again to Steve Van Ness. He's usually in Clinton. Today he's in Breckenridge. So we'll still let you in, even though it's snowing.
Okay. Well, I'm traveling for the first time in a year, and I've got one shot in me. So, Well, thank you, Eric. So I'm the president of the Clinton Arts Council, which is one of the best ways for me to give back to my community. I own a company called Impact Arts Events Group, and I've been producing events in the arts for 30 years. And I want to take just a moment to thank you, Congressman, for taking this time to listen to arts people and to work on how funding can really make a difference in economic impact. So when COVID hit, I lost all the events I was doing. So I pivoted and started doing virtual events. And actually, I worked with Eric, and I created a panel that through Eric's Shoreline Arts Council called How to Reimagine Events Virtually. And we did sessions on creating broadcast events and how to do them, and what broadcast switching and platforms to use, and how to monetize. And we had arts organizations and individual artists from throughout the state come and listen to them. I did a similar series with the Oddfellow Theater on teaching the arts virtually. And we had dance theater, visual arts, and writing companies all there trying to learn how to teach and use the arts through virtual and broadcast. And what we heard over and over again from organizations and individual artists in rural and urban communities alike was that we want to present art, but we don't understand the technology. We don't have the equipment or the resources of the staff to produce and broadcast events, to take our art and put it online in some ways during COVID. So based on this is what we realized that we need, and I've talked to a couple different like Shoreline Arts Councils about, is a fund of money that can be combined with information resources that arts organizations and individual artists can access to create and produce virtual and hybrid events. As we come out of this pandemic, hybrid events are what's going to come back. Theaters with a quarter capacity, but a lot of people also watching at home. And how to produce these events differently, how to present content virtually different than in person. And this year and next year, coming out of it, this is the first step in arts organizations and presenters and individual artists coming back. So we need to provide access to broadcast technicians and staff and equipment that know how to do this, along with guidance on how to monetize events. A lot of arts organizations are like, can we sell a ticket if we're just broadcasting online and we're not in person? And should we be monetizing, and how can we monetize, and the platforms to do that? And the guidance to work with artists to say, how do you present differently when you're presenting in person, or maybe partly in person and partly to a hybrid audience? And lastly, how to bring arts and business and culture together, because especially the broadcast world has the ability to bring arts as sponsorship with business and work together in business and arts together. A lot of small businesses that are also struggling to come back on the main streets of Connecticut can partner with artists as they are coming back. So this pool of funds can create jobs, allow artists and arts organizations to maybe present for the first time if they haven't done much, if they've struggled, and generate income for the arts and for the artists. So one of the silver linings in COVID is that arts organizations are presenting in a broadcast or a virtual way can now present their art to the world instead of just in a theater to 200 or 300 people maybe. So it allows arts to broadcast and create events to another arts organization in California if they want to come and watch it, and be able to market them. That marketing allows that local business can partner with the arts in a much broader, bigger way than they've had when they were just maybe working in their theater in Connecticut or their organization. One example is I'm working right now in Connecticut with a nonprofit called Rise Up, which is creating 39 Martin Luther King murals on 39 walls in 39 towns in Connecticut. Martin Luther King was 39 years old when he died. And we're going to unveil the first 6 of these on June 19th. And it's going to be a broadcast event. There'll be some, depending on how COVID goes, some people in person that'll be there with some speeches, but it'll also be broadcasted to people throughout the state and organizations, but also across the United States they'll be able to work. And there's eventually going to be 39 of these different murals that'll happen. And they've already got partnerships with business and arts and corporate funding and grant funding. We already got $5,000 to the State Arts Council to help fund the cost of the broadcast and the technology to be able to have cameras there and switch it to make this broadcast happen. So lots of small arts organizations and nonprofits and individuals are the ones that need this fund. So my question is, how can because I don't know if this falls within these fundings that you've talked about. If we can create a pool of funds that can be administrated like by organizations like Eric, to organizations that need this technology to understand and how to broadcast and how to take their events and make them hybrid, virtual maybe right now and hybrid over the next year. How can we get that funding directed to a pool of fund that could be managed by arts administrators like Eric in the state? And how can we support you, Congressman, in helping to direct those funds to a place where we could create a pool for everyone?
So I think in the immediate present, I think what Julia described in terms of the NEH application process, which will be followed by NEA application process,
Right.
you know, that really could be an opportunity for, you know, something, you know, very innovative like the one that you just described. I would also, and this came up with Wendy Burry a couple days ago over at Goodspeed, was that, you know, the state of Connecticut is actually going to get a rather substantial amount of funds as a result of the American Rescue Plan. And it, if you look at the parameters of what Governor Lamont and the legislature are going to have, it's pretty flexible. You know, I mean, there has to be some sort of connection by and large, you know, to sort of a COVID response. But what you described is exactly a COVID response. I mean, like you said, you had to pivot to like a different sort of business model, which is brilliant, by the way. You know, I really
Thank you.
found that fascinating. But you know,
I did
again,
it all without money at first, just to give back. And what came out of it was arts organizations and individuals going, "Can you just help us do this?" When Eric and I started this,
Yeah,
workshop
we
thing,
said
it took off, and everyone
Right.
said, "Gee, we really need this." Yeah.
so again, I mean, I think that's like a kind of an idea, which again, I don't know exactly what, you know, the governor's plans are, but I mean, frankly, you know, their baseline budget, knock on wood, has not been as drastically impacted as other states. And so these new dollars that are coming in through the American Rescue Plan, which again is in the billions, you know, it's well over $2.5 billion. You know, there's going to be opportunities there. And as I said, it's not like, you know, they can't use it to supplant other, you know, funds that are already there. I mean, they really have to use it for new purposes.
So this would be right. So this is what would be a new fund that could be used broadly throughout the state.
But and again, it's not recurring, you know, long term either. You know, I mean,
No, this is a short-term need for
right.
the next
No,
year or two.
and the rules on the state and local funding is that it has to be expended by the end of 2024.
Right. That's
So that's
exactly
one I think, you know, people should kind of think about after this call today, is that there's, you know, and Wendy has already put out the call that every town who gets local aid through the rescue plan should set aside 1% of their funds for the arts, which I think is brilliant, actually, because again, they're going to have a lot of discretion too.
So do we go to the do I go to the governor's office with people like Eric and say, how do we go about applying to create this fund?
Yeah, I mean, I to be honest with you, it's been a while since I was in Hartford. I forget what the structures are that the governor has set up for arts programs. I'm sure Eric knows this stuff.
Yeah, we can discuss
Eric
that.
will do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again,
Thank you
I
so
think,
much.
you know, and frankly, putting your oar in the water pretty soon on this, because the money
Yep.
under the law, so the rescue plan was signed into law on March 11th by President Biden. Under the law, the money to the states has to be distributed within 60 days of enactment, which is May 11th. Okay, so this stuff is going to start moving fairly quickly. And as I said, there's going to be some discretion there.
Great. Well, thank
great.
you so much, Congressman.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. So we have one more person who's targeted to chat with you here. It's Jennifer Eifrig from Judy Dworin Performance Project. They've got a big project in Niantic they want to tell you a little bit about. So Jennifer, are you there?
I am.
There she is.
Hey. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I've learned so much from everybody. And Stephen, I definitely want to talk to you, because that's exactly what we had to do, was pivot. A year ago, we didn't even know what Zoom was. And now we're doing, you know, Zoom productions. So, and our poor communications person, me, has to figure all this out.
Love to.
So let me tell you a little bit about Judy Dorn Performance Project. We've been actually around since 1989, and our mission is to use the arts, particularly dance and dance theater, as a catalyst for societal and personal change. So we have a social justice mission. And we have 3 program umbrellas. There's the professional JDPP Dance Theater Ensemble. We have a Moving Matters, it's called, public schools residency program. And then we have the Bridging Boundaries programs for arts and for adults and children impacted by incarceration. We're based in Hartford, but our work in the 2nd district is focused on York Correctional Institution for Women, which is the state's only women's prison. We have 3 residencies there. The oldest of which began in 2005, so it's been 16 years now. We work with incarcerated women and their families, their children, and their caregivers through dance and movement, visual arts, creative writing, and performance. And we work alongside the prison counselors who provide the follow-up services. And it's that partnership, like what Brianna was saying, between the arts and counseling that really makes the whole thing work. Our work with populations impacted by incarceration is important, it's unique, but it's often invisible because it's literally behind a wall. Since the pandemic started, we've been engaging our participants remotely. That's the only way we can do it. We can't even use Zoom. We can't even use the telephone. We're using US mail, believe it or not. And we're sending art and writing prompts and dance prompts through the prison counselors back and forth, and it's super challenging. But we really made the decision not to make our participants feel even more isolated than they already were by just giving up and pausing everything. We also pivoted all our school residencies to remote video instruction, and we had to learn to do that very, very quickly. And we've now focused on social emotional learning, which everybody's talking about. And so I think there's going to be a real need for that in schools coming up this summer and fall. And we moved all our performances to Zoom video. So we've reinvented literally 30 years of operations in just a few short weeks. And we've discovered like great new opportunities that we couldn't have imagined. Like everybody, the pandemic has affected us financially, as well as programmatically. And I do want to say we have received really critical help from Connecticut Office of the Arts and from PPP and EIDL. We're really incredibly grateful for that. As things stand right now, we're not planning to apply for shuttered venues, mostly because earned revenue is the smallest percentage of our revenue stream. Our residency work in public schools and prisons is all offered for free to the participants and to the host institutions. It's supported by grant funding. We do take our work to the public through professional ticketed performances, and we tour and hold paid residencies at colleges when conditions allow. But the larger proportion of our revenue is from grants and donations, which makes the calculations for shuttered venues not really work for us. We absolutely support the program and we encourage everybody to apply. But my question for the congressman and for the group is, and I think maybe some of this has been answered, but might there be other opportunities under American Rescue Plan and other funding streams for organizations like mine that rely more on grants and donations rather than earned revenue?
So as I was listening, Jennifer, again, congratulations, and it's wonderful you're down at the prison there in Niantic, which I used to be a public defender, years ago, and I spent some time over there. So, another aspect of the American Rescue Plan, because you mentioned schools a little bit there, which again, there is an eye-watering amount of funding for K through 12.
Okay.
That's included in this bill. I mean, it's, I was on, earlier today with a school superintendent, talking about, again, this funding. And again, CARES Act had some money for K through 12. The December bill that passed had some money for K through 12, but this thing is like triple the size of, and again, it's, and so if you take like the city of Norwich, they're getting $15 million, new dollars for K through 12. And 20% of that funding has to be devoted to learning loss. Okay, which, we all know is real, in terms of kids who, just disappeared, from the school systems during all of this. And also because of all the setbacks, which, we talked about with art and soul therapy in terms of social isolation, et cetera. I mean, there's really, this is a very serious problem, as I'm sure you all know, in terms of, kids, really getting set back as a result of this. So, right now, school superintendents across Connecticut are meeting and Zooming and emailing because they frankly are in some ways a little bit almost like dumbfounded with the size of the funding that they've got in terms of, they'll find ways, I'm sure, to spend.
I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of it, frankly, is they're going to spend some of it on infrastructure in terms of, HVAC systems to improve air quality in schools, which is wonderful. But again, 20% is learning loss. So I just sort of leave that with you. And, that's something that you can kind of maybe think about. And, as I said, superintendents right now, as I said, they are still sort of grappling. We have the town by town breakdown in Eastern Connecticut, if you're interested, just to kind of see the magnitude of dollars that are coming out there. And again, obviously the big cities in, Hartford, Bridgeport, New Haven. I mean, again, this is really like, something that we've never seen before in terms of, and it's wonderful. I mean, the president is following through on his commitment to education. He released his skinny budget today for fiscal year 2022, 40% increase in federal education spending that's included in there. I mean, it's, it's really actually kind of like, I'm on the Education and Labor Committee. It kind of almost gives me, the shiver, this chills up the spine. So, so anyway, I'll leave that with you, and
great. Thank you.
Something else to sort of marinate on.
Yeah. Thank you. And
thank you, Jennifer.
Great.
Did you have something else you wanted to say, Jennifer? I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I just wanted to say, and thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, Congressman Courtney, this has been spectacular. Thank you so much. I think we must have, really answered a lot of great questions. I actually wanted to end with the education topic and didn't know we'd get there. So I'm so glad. I was just talking to a superintendent recently who was saying the same thing, that they were kind of like baffled with how much money just came their way. And it's exciting that they have it, but wow. And so that's good news for all of us, I think, to be able to start reaching out to the schools. I'm sure they're going to start having a way to process that information, but thank you for bringing that up today. Is there anything, I know you need to get on to another call, but is there anything that we didn't touch on that you think we should think about?
Well, again, as we said at the beginning, at a time like this, you can never over communicate. And, we just appreciate, groups like the Shoreline Alliance and the, Southeastern Connecticut Alliance, in terms of trying to bring people together. And, my staff, like Julia and others, I mean, they just, love, the opportunity to kind of share information as it's rolling out in terms of different guidances that are coming out. I mean, a big one to sort of look out for in that area is the Treasury Secretary is going to be putting out its guidance, her guidance, Janet Yellen, on state and local funding. And that's due no later than May 11th, which is really going to set, I think, a lot of the parameters for Governor Lamont and a lot of the local leaders in terms of the local funding, which again is separate from the school funding. But that, and obviously, the agencies that are the closest to you, like NEH and NEA and, SBA, we will, shoot that stuff over to you, in real time, as soon as we get it.
Well, thank you so much. Your staff, I must say, has been extraordinary. Thank you so much for having them on your team. They've done a great job to help us, be prepared for all these good things. And I hope we didn't get too heavy-handed today on the fact that there's a lot of folks who don't fit in the shuttered venues. I just wanted to make sure that you understand that even the Reopening Connecticut Arts Task Force doesn't, there's no PPP there. There's none of that funding and we don't fit. So there's a lot of groups out there. We want to recognize that later, but right now let's celebrate what we're getting, which is the shuttered venues. So thank you so much for all your work there, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. And
Yes.
Congressman Courtney and I, everyone, we had a wonderful trip through multiple venues on foot a couple of years ago, and I can't wait to do that again because it was really great. He's a true arts lover. He loves what we all do, and we just so appreciate you reaching out and being a part of today. So thanks so much. Hope everybody gets outside in the sun today.
That's right.
So don't stay on your call too long.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.